nothing. Here it is, my Mercedes 250. Now these are pretty cool cars, pretty stout, really well built, super solid, high build quality. I think they're pretty well designed other than the terrible European headlights, and we only have the Department of Transportation and probably Ralph Nader to blame for that. Now, these cars were designed in the late 60s, early 70s, and this car in particular was actually really, really important to Mercedes. Paul Brock designed this car to take over for the Fintail. So I want you to imagine that you're a guy who's going to go buy a car in the 60s, late 60s, 1967, 68, kind of when this car came out. Mercedes at the time had something called the Fintail, which looks a little bit like this. And honestly, if you're a guy with a checkbook that's going to write a check for a big luxury car like this, you're not going to want something that's as dated looking as that Fintail. Plus, the Fintail was one of the cars that was designed on previous chassis. This car is the first car post-war that Mercedes designed that wasn't designed on something else. Obviously, the war really destroyed Germany, so they were kind of just rehashing things, doing stuff like that. This car, therefore, very, very important to the advancement of the brand for Mercedes. And you can imagine a Fintail in the late 60s, early 70s, probably not going to be selling that well. People really wanted this. But the Fintail was probably reminding them of this.
But don't forget the thrills, the sheer fun you'll have driving this king of the road everywhere. Why not look it over now at your authorized Chevrolet dealers? The more you look, the more you'll like the 57 Chevrolet.
So yes, this car, very, very important for Mercedes. Paul Brock was brought on to get rid of that Fintail design. Now, he was designing for BMW, Peugeot, Mercedes. He designed the E21, the E24, which are both fantastically designed cars. And he also is the designer and came up with the concept for the BMW M1. Now I know what you're thinking. Giugiaro designed the M1, but I'm going to show you a design that Brock came up with in his kind of in that time period of the BMW Turbo concept. And you compare it to an M1, it's pretty tough to come away thinking that Giugiaro designed the M1 by himself. Plus, then I get to say that the guy that designed the BMW M1 also designed my W114/8, as it's called, Mercedes. And that's pretty cool. They produced a ton of these cars, a ton. Just to give you a perspective, and I don't remember all the numbers off the top of my head, but they made more of these and sold more of these worldwide than Ford did the Mustang. That is a big deal. This car saved Mercedes. It was a really important car, and it set the standard for everything that would come next until everything was ruined in the 90s. But this was the predecessor to the legendary W123, which carried on the build quality from this. So, needless to say, I'm really, really excited to own this car. I've always wanted one. Let's see if we can get it running. All right, so this is kind of what we're dealing with here. This is a 2.5 liter, 6-cylinder engine, 9-to-1 compression, and 150 horsepower. Now this doesn't sound like a ton of horsepower, but think about it. 1968, 150 horsepower in a small car like this, really not that bad. And it's got these dual carburetors on it, and I don't know exactly what they are. I think they're probably Zeniths. They say Zenith right on them. Okay, so they're Zeniths, dual Zenith carburetors. I don't know how hard they're going to be to deal with. These have been rebuilt by my buddy Dave, great carburetor restoration guy. So I know that the carburetors are technically good to go, but I don't know. I don't really know what the deal is with the linkages, syncing, anything like that. So we've got a long way to go with those. And I know that I don't think there's any fuel lines hooked up to this thing. I don't know, are these loose? Yeah, fuel lines are loose. We're probably just gonna maybe spray some starter fluid in there just to see if we can kick things over, make sure the ignition is all working correctly. And I know there's no fuel lines in this car. They're all rusted out. They're all gone. There's no brake lines. But I just want to see if it runs. Let's see if it does. All right. Get the battery hooked up. Ooh, that's horrible. Got the e-brake. The e-brake does work. That's on. Park. Nothing. Nothing. I need to be in a different... Wiggle this around, see if the neutral switch is bad. Nothing. Nothing at all. Man, that's not a good start. All right, I'm gonna throw this on the ground and I'm gonna see if I can wiggle this around. Just trying to get the neutral safety switch to maybe just catch and just give me a little bit of a starter turn or something. But there's nothing. There's nothing there at all. All right, next step, we're gonna try and jump the starter right at the starter, just make sure that thing even works at all. So when you turn the key on the ignition, there's a little wire that comes down to the starter and basically tells the starter to draw the power directly from the battery. There's way too much amperage for it to be coming all the way from the battery, all the way up the ignition switch, and all the way back down. So we have to figure out a way to jump the starter. And what you do is you grab this. It's got a little switch. And we've got these things right here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna hook these up to each side of the starter solenoid. And then this will then act as our ignition switch. And that should give us an idea if the starter's good, as if the wiring's good, down here at least. And if the starter works, the starter turns over, then clearly the ignition switch or the neutral safety switch is at fault. So let's get this thing hooked up. All right, starter. Wow, I don't know if I'm really gonna be able to show you guys. Let's see if we can get in there for a look. All right, so that is the starter back there. And as you can see, it's in excellent, excellent condition. You can see a couple posts there. We're gonna have to put this thing on those posts and give her a whirl and see if she turns over. It's kind of a tough angle for you guys, but you can see I've got the two little clamps, one on the ignition where it comes out of this neutral safety switch, and the other one then is on the actual starter solenoid. So let's grab our little switch. Ooh, okay, this is good. Well, it kind of actually sucks. That means I have to figure out where the neutral safety switch is, because that's clearly what the problem is. Starter works, could be an ignition switch too, but the odds are, judging by the wiring that I'm seeing, which is pretty crusty, the neutral safety switch has failed. If you guys remember, I pulled out some pretty old stuff out of the glove compartment, and that really tells me that this thing hasn't really run much, or has not run in a very long time. It makes me nervous, just in terms of the wiring being very brittle. You know, I really want to get this thing running, but I don't want to go overboard. All right, back inside. All right. Let's see what we got here. Oh, great. So there's no wiring up here, which means the neutral safety switch is probably, on the transmission underneath the car. Great. All right, so I'm looking at this terrible, I mean, this is probably one of the worst wiring diagrams I've ever had to deal with, because it was photocopied when the internet was invented. You can see that right here is the neutral safety switch. And it looks like we have a violet and white wire, a violet with a white stripe, and a violet wire that need to be basically taken off the neutral safety switch and spun together. Just to skip that system and see if we can at least get this thing to, you know, fire, turn over, or whatever we need it to do. All right, let's find the neutral safety switch. It's got to be somewhere. All right, let's pop the light on, go for an adventure. See what we can find. Okay. Okay, so we gotta look for where the steering column comes down. So the steering column comes down right here. This is the steering column right there, that's the linkage for it. And it goes all the way back here to right here. And this is our neutral safety switch. Right there. So we got to pull this plug off somehow and cross those two wires together. And we'll take another look at the wire diagram to make sure we're doing the right ones, but that's it right there. Let's pull that off and cross some wires out and make this thing unsafe. We might have to bring back the GoPro for this under the car stuff, guys. This is pretty tough. The actual plug for this kind of disintegrated a little bit. Kind of fell off. But as you can see, we've got purple, and then we've got purple and white. And I think those two wires need to go together to bypass this neutral safety switch. I'm not exactly sure what these other wires do. I don't know that we need them. We might want to take a look, I guess. But I think these are our boys right here. So we need to make a jumper wire. So I've cut a little piece of wire right here, and I have this fantastic tool. Love this thing. Grabs the wire with this little thing and pulls it apart. Makes stripping wires super easy. I'll show you guys. Piece of cake. Love this thing. All right, let's get this jumper wire in here. We'll plug it in and see if she turns over. Wow. That sound is horrible. All right, fingers crossed. This should, please, 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 please. No, it still doesn't work. No, now what? Oh, shit. Damn, that is not great. This is how people end up with little buttons in their car. There's no like seatbelt thing, is there? And all these seatbelts are super ancient. So obviously we've got to get in there somehow. Let's check out this ignition switch. This is all covered in something sticky. Ugh. But I guess this panels need to come off, which means this panel needs to come off too. Or maybe this just comes off by itself somehow. Oh man, what a bummer. That makes things significantly harder. Guys, I really thought that was it. I really did. All right, another thing we're gonna have to do before we go too much further is look at these. That's nothing, that's not a thing. And I know this basically runs through that ignition switch, so let's inspect all these fuses. As you can tell, morale kinda a little bit of a dip when you think you knew. You just knew it. You just knew what the problem was. Oh man. All right, let's clean off all these fuses and inspect the fuse box a little bit. right, maybe we'll get lucky with that. What do you guys think? No, nothing. Oh man. All right, onwards. This actually looks pretty clean. These don't look destroyed like some of the other ones did up top. So we'll just wiggle these back and forth, make sure the connections are good. Oh, we got a little shorty fuse right there. I've never seen that before. So the problem is down to two things. One, the ignition switch is bad, or two, the purple wire coming out of the neutral safety switch is broken in between the switch and the starter. And that's a lot easier to check, a lot less likely, but let's check that, see if that's the issue. If that's not it, then we know it's gotta be the ignition switch, or at least the wiring from the ignition switch to the neutral safety switch. Man, wiring. Okay, so I've done, this is kind of my last chance before I start taking the ignition switch apart, is I've got these 10-foot retractable leads right here. And basically what that is just these big long wires that come out of this spool, and you can hook them up to things. So basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna bypass the chassis wiring from the neutral safety switch right to the starter and just see if that wire is bad. Like I said, kind of my last ditch effort for something easy, I guess. Let's hop in the car and see what happens. Okay. Let's I can't cross my fingers. You guys cross your fingers. You ready? Got them crossed? 1, 2, 3. Yes! Yes! Listen to that thing crank over like a champ. All right, that's rad. That's so good. Morale back up. Morale sky high. We're good to go. It turns over with the key. That means I just have to replace that wire from the neutral safety switch over to the starter. Easy job, no big deal. And I'm basically gonna do that. I'm gonna leave that neutral safety switch disconnected. I don't care. Can't tell you guys exactly why I don't care yet, but I don't care. Let's take a look at the fuel system on the car and see if we can figure out, you know, if we can get some gas in this thing and get it to fire, get it to start, which would be fucking awesome. Let's just do it one more time. Yes, rad. So I kind of knew that the fuel system was kind of questionable, but I pulled the fuel line off to the carbs, and it is toast. So we replaced that line, which means that line is toast. There's probably a lot of other lines that are toast too. We're gonna kind of investigate from the carbs to the fuel pump, all the way back to the back of the car. And honestly, we're not gonna go all the way back with you because it's just gonna be too hard to crawl under the car with the car this far in front of my face. But I'd love to be able to put some gas in this thing. I just don't want it to be leaking all over the floor. All right, so here's the line I replaced already. I guess I should probably tighten that clamp up. That one's replaced. This line is hard as a rock, just brutal. Probably needs to be replaced. Someone has put a new fuel pump on this thing with a new fuel filter in anticipation of having it turn over when they first tried, but obviously it never did. That line looks okay. It's got a nice little one shot on it. I don't think this is gonna leak right now as we try to start this, but I don't know that I'm gonna leave it there forever. So that's all the lines I can see right here. Now let's go underneath the car by myself, all alone, and take a look at the lines all the way back to the trunk. I'm gonna guess there's some corrosion. Fingers crossed that there's not. All right, guys, I wanna show you something. This makes me pretty happy. This is my life under here. What have we got here? Brand new fuel lines. That is awesome. Let me throw just like a little bit of gas in this thing and see what happens. See if it just leaks all over the floor. This thing's amazingly pretty clean. It's not super rusty, but obviously anything like the lines and stuff had some sort of issue or they wouldn't have been replaced. Let's get out of here. Ugh. I just want to see if she makes a little bit of noise. It's got compression, that's for sure. I think she would have popped off by now if she would have, with a little bit of that starting fluid, which means I might not have spark. Oh man. Okay, so we're gonna check for spark, and I've got this little handy dandy tool, which should theoretically work. Feels kind of cheap and shitty, but that's what you get for ordering something on Amazon, I guess. This goes in line with the spark plug wire, and this little thing right here should light up every time there's spark. So this will be an easy way for us to check and see if we've got spark. Let's plug this thing. I've got the hand throttle switch thing ready to go, so I don't have to be in the car to turn the key. Let's get this in line, see if it works. We have spark. Confirmed. We have spark. That's great. So we've got a key, we've got spark, we've got the engine turns over. So why don't we have a little bit of a cough? Do we need a little bit more starter juice? I'm hesitant to put too much in there because if it gets lean or something, it backfires through the carb and starts shit on fire. So I'm kind of leery of doing that. Fucking A, let's just put some gas in the gas tank, huh? We know it's got all new lines. Let's fill it up, see if we can get some gas up here. I think that's the way to go. I have to actually open up the garage door and go outside to do this because the fuel door on this thing is right there. That's our fuel door. So we've got to open the garage door because I backed this thing up so far, you know, to make a little bit of extra space. Oh man. Holy cow. Been a while, huh, baby? My goodness. Oh. Oh, man. I'll show you guys what I see. So I can zoom in. That, my friends, is not good. I do not feel good about that. Holy cripes. That is bad news. The whole inside of the tank is like that. We are in deep shit. Ooh. I mean, that is like, how many fuel filters is that going to be? Oh, man. Okay, well, I am not putting any gas in that, because that just is not a good idea. Let's peek while we're here and see what it's like to get this gas tank out. It's all the way back here, maybe it's not so bad. It is literally right here. You can see the bolts. Looks like there's a couple bolts there. Oh my goodness, I'm glad I didn't put any gas in because look at that. I'm sorry, I know this is crooked, guys, but that's not even hooked up. Oh man, okay. I gotta look at some things here a little bit. Time out. I'll be right back. Let's get the jump box on it and see if we can at least get it to go, feed me. Sorry guys, no start today. I feel bad, I thought we'd get it going. I thought we'd at least make some fire, but she doesn't want to start. She's unhappy. I can't let this go. I'm back out here. I'm gonna put a little bit of, wow, look at this cap. Someone screwed me. They put a little hole in it. I was gonna put a little gas in here and dump it in the carb. Not with this one. One of my buddies was saying, man, I don't know that brake cleaner is really good for that. Kind of used brake cleaner before, so I'm not sure, but I might as well give it a try and just put a little bit of actual gasoline in there and see if it starts on that. What else have we got to lose, right? Let's give it a try. Guys, secret. I didn't have the key on that whole time when we were doing it with the brake cleaner. All right, let's try this. Let's put a little bit of gas in here. Yes, we got it, it runs! Woo! It's amazing what having the key on will do. Hey, this is good. She runs, baby. Yeah? Yeah? I think we might pull the gas tank out, have the gas tank done, have it coated so that we can just I just don't feel comfortable with all that rust in there. And it's only 3 bolts, so just pull it out. So we'll pull it out, we'll get it cleaned, and then we put some gas in this thing, we can get it running. And after that, we can get it stopping, because it's always better to go than to stop. All right, guys, that is it. We will see you next week. I think we're gonna have Brandon on again. I'm not sure exactly what we're gonna be doing, but I'm hoping we'll have some trooper stuff to work on. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, be excited with me. Hit us up in the comments if you thought it was gonna run, if you didn't think it was gonna run. Maybe you were right, maybe you weren't. I'd love to hear about it. We'll talk to you there. We'll see you next week.